Perfect. So first of all, thank you so much for joining. I true story. I actually arrived from Munich yesterday just for this event, and then like most of you, yesterday I got like a crazy alert on my phone. Like it was raining, like heavy thunderstorm, middle thunderstorm, long thunderstorm, sky is falling. Then I thought like, oh my God, I came from Munich. I guess probably nobody's gonna show up tomorrow. And actually, yet you all proved me wrong. So thank you so much. I mean, from my heart, thank you so much for coming tonight. Uh, Before we start, let me just introduce myself because you probably, as you noticed, my picture is not even here. So why am I even saying something here? That is because I'm here to present MVST to you. MVST is the company where I get the opportunity to work as a CTO. And when I say that, question that people always ask me is like, okay, what do you guys do? And the answer that I have, like, it's basically, to be more precise, like the core of what we do is basically we are building digital products. Like that's the core of what we do. And when I say that, what I mean is that unlike a lot of different places that I worked on before, that we are kind of writing software, our team, I was very like happy to work on this team, very lucky, I would even say. We are really building stuff like taking the attention to the details to the max. So everybody that works with us, we were fortunate enough to build a team where everybody cares. And when you're building stuff, we are really, really putting efforts into ensuring that the code quality, the designs, the features that we deliver are really top notch. And yeah, that's of course makes me super happy. A lot of the guys are here as well. A lot of the team is here as well. So yeah, I'm always feel very proud of what we do. And yeah, my name is Mateus, by the way, for those of you that don't know me. For those of you that do know me, my name is still Mateus. And yeah, and one thing that we noticed over the time is like we've been running this company for 5 years or maybe even 6 already. Time flies. Is that now more than ever, and I'm pretty sure next year I'm going to say the same thing, but AI is just kind of like a requirement, I would say. So requirement from when people come talk to us about, hey, I want to build this new product, they are always trying to sneak in AI. I'm using the broader AI term right now. Usually it means a chatbot, but anyways. And also people talking to me about development, career, and whatnot. They want to use like the latest agents to like to make their workflows better and stuff like that. And just like everyone else, we're also learning on the fly because a field that's constantly evolving. So therefore, we thought, hey, it would be a very nice idea to actually get together with people that knows about AI deeply to basically discuss different approaches. So today we're going to talk about generative AI. We're going to talk about agents. We're going to talk about even the legal part as well, because something that I particularly struggle with a lot. Because yeah, I mean, it's not that easy to navigate this realms. And we're also going to talk about context engineering, which is something very important. I can say it from my own personal experience. And yeah, and I think that's pretty much it. I think without further ado, actually, before we start, just one more thing, just like housekeeping. For those of you that don't know, the toilet's over there. Feel free to go to the toilets, like the 2 doors over there. We also have water here. If you want to grab it, there's like some glasses over here. And in the format, we're going to have 4 talks. The talks should take around 15 minutes each. You have a Q&A at the end, so you have like around 3 minutes to ask questions if you want. If you don't have the time, because of course it's very short, we want to keep it short and crisp. But if you don't have time, after the 4 talks, we are going to have a round table of sorts. It's going to be very formal. I even asked the like the guys, the guests, to hey, grab a beer if you want. Let's just talk about informally about stuff. So if you do not have the time to get your questions answered, you can also wait for the round table. In the meantime, while we're doing the talks, I think we already ordered the pizzas, so pizzas are going to be arriving. And of course, I'm going to do some kind of like, I'm going to do some timekeeping because, of course, like you, I also want to get the pizzas when they're warm. So yeah, so that's the plan. And like, I think without further ado, I can introduce Pablo, and then he's going to be talking. I mean, you can talk more about yourself, but yeah, very nice guy, lead AI product manager at N26, talking about Gen AI versus ML, and basically how to build software in these different mindsets. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Oh yeah, and I forgot the only I had one job, which is like close to. Yeah, there you go. Thank you.
I mean, a few words about the company. During the last couple of weeks, I think I had 4 talks in total, and I think MVST was the most prepared one. So I really share what you said about the company and how you care about these things. So let me introduce myself. So my name is Pavlo. I'm Ukrainian. So in 2021, I joined in 26 in Berlin, where I spent 4 years. And actually, end of June, I moved to Barcelona. So I'm quite new here. So, and I'm working still in Barcelona. Overall, I have computer science background. Since from university, I think the first time I saw neural network was 2007, maybe, at that time at the university. And I'm working as lead PM for AI products at N26. N26, who doesn't know, this is online bank. Spain is one of our core markets. And if you don't have account yet, next year, we want to launch lots of interesting new products here, because we really see big growth of Spain at the moment on our side. And finally, we can grow because we don't have limitations. And maybe before we start, few words what AI PM is. Because if you open LinkedIn these days, you will have 5, 6 different. And basically, if you ask people, they all do different. So in our case, that's the team which works closely with other product areas when they think they need AI capability. Or, for example, when they don't even know what AI capability is. Big part of my work, for example, this is going through scientific papers, for example, keep track of what's happening, what's the cutting edge at the moment, and so on. And then I work closely with our data scientists when we have to implement something basically for other teams. Overall, the history at N26 of ML is very long. I think the first model we had in 2020, and GenAI, the first use case we had live last year. So I think based on the current growth, next year we'll have around 100 use cases across the company in different areas. So that's quickly about what the idea. Let me. Yeah, it's not working. Okay. Yeah, today I want to quickly talk about 2 things: machine learning versus GenAI. If they're the same, if they're really different, and a couple of, let's say, things from our own experience and my personal view, and if they can live without each other, actually, in the future. So the whole world, I think many of you know what machine learning is, but basically for the last decade, we were focused on the thing which you can call optimization. So we build models to basically make some existing processes more efficient. That can be different stuff like better ad targeting, lower fraud, better experience, etc. So basically we had some specific metric which we wanted to optimize, and then we built specific model for this case in order to try to achieve, let's say. And overall, if you think about the approach, it was about one thing. It was try to find one right answer at that time with the help of the tool. What's happening now with GenAI? GenAI is about creation. So it's basically you create new content, and now we use the models to generate, not to generate content, but not to optimize stuff. And actually, one of the biggest challenges is about finding one of many possible answers now, because now usually when you try, even if you, let's say, use more or less the same prompt in different conditions, you do 10 times, sometimes you will get a different answer. And then try to imagine in production, basically, what kind of consequences sometimes it can have and so on. So this move basically from optimization to creation breaks a lot of playbooks which the company had for many years. How to evaluate the stuff, how to make it consistent, basically how to make sure that tomorrow you can wake up and then everything was fine with the stuff, and basically how to even test and how to validate and how to do evaluations of it. I'm very bad with this thing. Oh. The predictive comfort zone. So let's deep dive a bit into machine learning, and basically I think the key steps when you want to build a model, no matter what the topic is. So overall, that whole area, we can call it comfort zone because it's everything about the control. So the first step, usually this is feature engineering. That's the most important step when people basically take a lot of data, they process, they clean, and then basically in the end, they try to find useful, what we call features for the model, which improve the performance of the model on the specific task. Then model training, we train a specialized algorithm, CatBoost, for example, if you want to have decision trees, neural network, or whatever, depending on the task and the requirements for this. And then the most important is that you have very deterministic output in this. So either it's core, or it's a class, or it's something n, depending on the task, and everything is super simple. And then there are very easy way how to assess the result. It can be either precision, recall, area under curve, or depending on your task, different metrics, and then which you can calculate, and then they see within like seconds, you can basically analyze the result and compare with, let's say, your previous experiment. Now, I like to call it the creative house. This is what's actually happening with this whole area at the moment. I think in most of the cases, if to summarize even some of our examples where we tried to be very, very strict, it's about let's try to leverage what it can do and then basically let it go. If you try to ground it too much and so on, then you will lose some of the capabilities it has, and etc. But the most scary thing at all this, we lost our fine, let's say, grain control of what's happening. Yes, you can create a workflow, you can try to ground the LLM as much as possible and only have few outputs and etc. But for me personally, it's not that different, let's say, from automation and any other tool. But if we really talk about, let's say, some agentic flows and etc., that's way more complicated. So now instead of feature engineering, now we have prompt engineering, which was popular and I think still popular. A lot of people talk about this. But now we design instructions and workflows to guide the model's output instead of feature selection. The model adaptation before, basically, we were taking some specific algorithm and training the model from scratch. Now, basically, we adapt the model with different techniques like retrieval augmented generation, fine-tuning, depending on the case, and so on, unless you have 1 billion to create your own model and try to see how it goes. The output is very probabilistic. For example, a few months ago, Hugging Face the released an agentic course. And just out of curiosity, I decided to go through the course, get certification, and so on. And on the final exam, when you run agents, you run it 10 times, 2 of them, you get different results. And now you need to see it. And the most amazing stuff is that how to assess the result. Let's imagine you write a good marketing email. What's basically a good marketing email? How you can compare this email to the previous one, and etc. How to get this, let's say, fuzzy scene from the model. Lesson 1, and that's very interesting, that now it's not only about stats, it's about linguistics as well. So before, we really were spending days to take the data, find features as much as possible, even like very creative ones and so on, but our core value was in transforming the data. Now, actually, our core value is instructing the model. And now we spend days arguing about what's the good prompt versus the bad one. Should we put all the context inside of one big prompt and see how it goes and spend all the money tomorrow? Or basically, we should have more, let's say, bigger workflow, or do we need this at all? Which is a big topic as well. And what impresses me is that we spent 4 years looking, 10 years looking for people who can find good features. Now we are looking for people who can write good sentences. How sometimes the industry changes. Now, lesson number 2, the mode is your data. So as I said before, previously in machine learning, actually we build specific models from scratch. You take one of the algorithms, some of them still these days, they are created in the 80s. Even Gen AI and etc., all this neural network backpropagation, it's 1980s when basically some of that stuff was developed. But overall, actually, the algorithm and how we tune it was the secret sauce at that time. Basically, how we can optimize, let's say, that cut boost, how we do hyperparameter tuning, and all that stuff in the model. And this is where you can get, let's say, additional uplift. Now we adapt the models. In our case, we are trying, let's say, to train a few ones for very specific use cases. But as I said before, and unless you have 1 million to burn, don't think about this, because for most of your cases, you can easily use. And if you open Hugging Face, you can find a lot of different variations even now. But the question is who trained those models, or fine-tuned them, and based on what data, and whether it will work for you or not. And as I said, the race shifted from who has the best algorithm to the moment who has the best data and context now to plug these models in. So now let's imagine all of us, we can access OpenAI, we can access Anthropic models, download Qwen model from Hugging Face, and etc. It's more or less the same, even fine-tuning is the complex process if you don't have a model collapse. But in the end, we're all in the same starting point. And I think what makes all these cases special is data and the context around this. And that's the most important one. Depending on the context, even in some very weird use cases, we had at the company that you take your context, you really put in a very, as we call it, big prompt strategy, then it really works great if it understands, let's say, the stuff behind this and so on. Then, challenge number one. So based on vibe coding, so I started to call at some point vibe-based evaluation. This is what's really happening now, because nowadays, I think we have use cases starting from internal ones, like different operations. We translate the documents because as the bank, we receive, let's say, still paper documents from some regulators by mail, which we need to scan, translate, and etc., and lots of different stuff. But then even in this case, yes, you can try to do some, let's say, metrics, which things you recognize on the paper and so on. But in the end, I would say it's very, very depends on who is doing the stuff. And what sometimes I think a lot is that basically we've lost our answer key. So in machine learning, everything in some sense is simple, that you have an answer, you do an experiment, then you take, let's say, distance or whatever, or as a metric depending on this case, and then you see how it goes. Now with GenAI, there is no one single answer. Some of the stuff can be done in 15 different ways, and all of that will be correct. Then the question is which one is good, and example which I constantly mention, because that's a very personal case to me, when we arguing a lot with marketing department about what good email is actually, and how to write this good email, let's say, automatically. At the moment, GenAI, I think, does a lot of stuff in some sense. But I would personally call all of that automation workflows with additional automation, which was not possible before. So, yeah. And our best-in-class solution, if you think about the industry at the moment, how to evaluate the result, let's use another LLM. Let's use LLM. It's like asking your drunk friend if you're drunk as well. Yeah, it works. But whether it's precise enough, it can be tricky. Then again, it depends which model, and so on, and so many things. Latency and the empty wallet problem. The traditional machine learning model. So people who use libraries a lot will recognize this stuff, but basically the cost of course, it depends on the model, on the size, environment, and so on, but more or less fractions of cents. And then the speed of good models, for example, we use many models at onboarding to assess potential. When you try to open an N26 account, we predict into the future in 12 months what the probability of actually this account becoming fin crime and so on. So milliseconds. Generative AI, it's more expensive now. And it's becoming very expensive if you don't keep an eye on this, especially when the context starts growing and then you add more and more and more information. Then at some point, where is my money? And what happens? And the speed. It's actually not that fast, even now with all this. If we take very roughly, let's say 1 million queries per day, that's the load, for example, of some of our models and so on. The cost, I would say, of machine learning is around 100 euro. It very roughly. But let's imagine about GenAI. Let's imagine we want to analyze the same number of requests with GenAI. Thousands. It's thousands of euro, depending whether it's an agentic approach or thinking model, provider, and lots of things. So I saw cases where people, even in our company, because some of the areas we are trying to democratize GenAI bit so that not only we can try, but actually different teams can try this. Then people implemented some stuff and so on, and then we did rough calculation. Guys, it will cost you 1 million per month. Let's fix this a bit, because people who keep an eye on our AWS account, they won't be actually happy. So the core point here is that GenAI is a premium tool at the moment. It's not a Swiss Army knife, which you can use. You need to know where and for which purpose use and then get, let's say, best out of this. The most interesting for me, because for like 15 years and so on, I saw many use cases and so on. But what I really like is the hybrid. It's the edge between these two worlds. And I think the most interesting use cases in the future will be when you combine both things and you take the best from the both worlds for different ones. I listed 2 examples. I think I can talk about them till the morning, but let me quickly go through them. So GenAI for machine learning. So overall, when I think about this, why we can use GenAI for machine learning is that we use expensive GenAI build time to make cheap machine learning models better. And one of the things which we experimenting a lot, and to be transparent, we are not there yet, but automated feature engineering is, in some sense, is not that far. So basically some of the features which before you had to craft, let's imagine as here, you want to do, you have a model which one of the features is like sentiment of your customer based on transcripts. So before, how relatively you would do this? You would create another model which is trained based on this so that it can return you this and etc. It's like a lot of work. Now we tried it recently and so on. You take one of the LLMs, you send it, you ask basically one question, properly structured form, and then you get this output, like within half of a day. Even if it's like millions, of course, it depends on your environment and so on. And then you use this to fit into the model. And now, actually, lots of experiments are going in that area because feature engineering, the most costly part of creating the model. In some areas, people spend months of creating this good features so that make a difference in the new experiment. In the opposite way, how we can use machine learning for GenAI. So machine learning is cheap, relatively. We can use it at run time to protect your expensive GenAI. And for example, instead of asking your drunk friend if you are drunk now, you can train machine learning model to do, let's say, sentiment analysis or different stuff. And then it's easier to evaluate those models. And then basically you can use these models to evaluate the result of your GenAI output. One, let's say, of the example. Takeaway, stop chasing the best model. It doesn't really matter. Of course, if you take, I don't know, ChatGPT 0.1 and then compare to ChatGPT 4.5 and so on, yeah, there will be difference, of course, because they're way too far. But in the end, like you take 4.5, Anthropic, for example, models and so on, it's more about everything around the model. It's about context, it's about data, it's about how good you understand your use case overall, how you can control what kind of requirements, and so on. At some point in the future, the model, somebody will agree, somebody won't agree at the moment, but basically they are or they will become a commodity. So it will be something common, then we can use. AI, Excel is updating. You will have soon GenAI capability there, and then people will start using it in different ways and so on. We are getting there. I think the most interesting one, and that's where the revolution will be coming from, in the use cases is that when you can combine all these things together. Sometimes you use ML, sometimes you use GenAI, sometimes you not use them at all. And that's very important one, because in some of the cases when teams, people, they come to us, and they're trying to explain us, okay, we have this, that, and that, let's use AI. We want AI tomorrow. Basically, it doesn't make sense. And one of the memes which I really like, and that tells a lot about our operational processes at the moment across many of the companies, is like the meme where on one side, basically, person receives a request from a manager. Can you please write this report till tomorrow? And the person is like thinking, yeah, I don't have time to write these 10 pages and etc. ChatGPT, can you help me write these 10 pages and so on? Then next screen, the manager, I don't have time to read this 10 pages. ChatGPT, can you please summarize these 10 pages into, let's say, 5 sentences? And this is what actually happening. In most of these cases that, and to be honest, that's the weird secret for me, why people started to invent what was called BPM many years ago. Business process management with normal workflows and etc. where potentially we can use all of that and then just say, inside of this workflow, so business processes, we have a node which can do Gen AI magic and etc. And then you can continue the flow. We started to create long chain, graphs, and all this messy stuff around this. But basically, the idea is the same. It can be as good as your process is, and sometimes you just don't need the stuff. Because having it in place will make your life complicated if you don't know how to control, and basically you don't know what to get. And never stop experimenting. This is what I think keeps me awake sometimes till 5 a.m. That try a lot. Nobody knows anything at the moment. If you look recent, for example, podcast with Andrei Karpathy, who is one of the stars at the moment, it's the same. We can make our assumptions, we can try, we can get our experience learnings and so on. But basically, you never try, because sometimes even the crazy ideas now work, and we don't understand why actually they work. And the last one, thank you. Thank you for having me here. Thank you for everything. If you have any questions, we'll be happy. And if you want to argue with me about everything what I said, you can find me on LinkedIn, and then I will reply to all your questions.
So, do you have any questions? I have to pick one for the sake of time. Yeah,
We have some real example from M26 with combining of both.
Yes.
I thought it's going to be short answers.
We use a lot for evaluation, especially in areas we are developing. Let's say we're improving our chatbot at the moment, and many of the things which we try to improve, we use machine learning there for this stuff. Then when we use it as a tool in different use cases, basically when one of the things which we're working on, unfortunately I cannot share this, but that's related to risk and fraud management, which lots of people in bank are doing like for ages and etc., looking at all of these transactions and so on. They still can calculate, super advanced analysis is hard for them, but they're strong in some sense. And then we use basically ML as a tool, as I said, to give additional insights so that it can generate, let's say, insights on top of the results of machine learning.
Thank you very much. For those of you who are not, thank you. For those of you who are not sitting right now, if you want to join us and sit here, now we're going to do a little transition, so it's actually the perfect time. And I have to be very annoying. I'm so sorry. Can you sit like here? Because we kind of have this connection here. Yeah, I'm sorry. But yeah, perfect. Can I have the mic? Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah, so now I'm going to introduce Alvin, right over there. And he's going to be talking about context engineering. And he's a founder of Raise Labs and the lead AI architect over there. So yeah. Oh, you had the mic already.
No, but this is mine. This is yours.
Okay,
I bring my camera.
Okay, awesome. Nice,
Yeah.
nice. But he's very prepared. So yeah,
Thank you.
Stage is yours. Thank you.
Let's go to the next one.
Okay.
One down. And this one. The one down is the next. This one.
Okay. First of all, thank you, MVST, for organizing this event and for having me here. And of course, thank you all for being here as well. So let's talk about the new buzzword in the field, in the AI engineering field, which is context engineering. I'm pretty sure that many of you have heard about context engineering. Let me introduce myself real quick. My name is Elvin. I've been working in data and AI since 2018. I've been also teaching deep learning subjects and data engineering in some courses, schools and organizations. And sometimes I do videos in YouTube. And that's it. So this is the agenda that we have for today. We are going to see real quick the gap between POC and production systems, why most prototypes fail in production, let's tackle this. Let's do a really deep dive in the new buzzword, which is context engineering. We are going to see the difference between prompt engineering and context engineering. And also, we are going to go straight to production-grade context engineering patterns. And finally, we are going to see some action items that you can start implementing yourself. So this chart over here, this is from an MIT report, which is called State of AI in Business 2025. And here in the bar on the left, on your left, we can see the general purpose LLMs. That means that companies that are investigating about the use of AI, but about the built-in solutions like ChatGPT, Microsoft Copilot. The bar on your right, the 60% one, are businesses that are investigating on building a specific AI system for the company. But what is very surprising, if we go all the way to the right, we can see that just 5% out of 60 are going into production. And why is that? Reality check. POCs are really easy, but AI production systems are really hard. And that's why we can see this huge drop in the chart before. So this is the reality. Most AI pilots fail. Some even can reach the POC stage. Of course, there are many causes, but one of them, well, the technical one that I see most commonly, is context. And since context is really important, let's put us in context. So why we are suddenly hearing about context engineering? Before, it was all about prompt engineering, and suddenly it's just all about context engineering. So probably Andres Carpati tweet this tweet last summer, talking about context engineering, and this is because the agentic era. So the field is evolving as fast as the field itself. So before we were used to just using LLMs for chat purposes. We have to be aware that LLMs are stateless algorithms. So with prompt engineering, we find ways through words to tweak the behavior of the LLMs. But the field, as I say, that has evolved to an agentic era. So we need more complex things. And why this word is becoming so popular? Because when Andres Carpati tweeted that, many people feel like really identified. This is the problem that I'm facing. So it makes sense to evolve the name and talk about context engineering, because it's not just prompting anymore. So we can say that right now, prompt engineering, it is a subset of context engineering, among other things, of course. So let's see a little bit the difference. Prompt engineering, as I said, is writing clever instructions in a prompt box. We all have seen techniques like one-shot, end-shot, chain of thought, and so on. But context engineering is a step further. Context engineering is designing the entire mental world the model operates in. So this is managing what, how, and when the model sees information. And this is really important. Okay, but there's more. Let's talk about production-grade context engineering techniques. Let's try to bring some useful information for you. So I like to talk about the 90-10 rule. What does mean? So context nowadays includes a lot of things: the retrieved knowledge, the memory that we have saved about the user preference, the tools instructions, history, output schemas, and so on. So the user prompt just become above 5 or 10% of the total content. So prompt engineering at the end nowadays is just the tip of the iceberg. Everything else is the context that is going to drive the behavior. So most reports nowadays, most studies are seeing that most of the AI production systems that fail is not about the model, it's about the context. So let's talk about some context engineering production techniques. If we focus on chatbot systems, we can talk about 3 memory types. One of them is the explicit memory. The explicit memory is what the user explicitly tells to us. So for example, if the user say, answer me always in the same language I'm writing you, this is the user explicitly telling us a preference. So this we are going to save it in our explicit memory. I'm sure that some of you may have seen this, what we see in the screenshot in ChatGPT, like the memory updated message. So this is us telling explicit instructions. So this is going to be saved in the explicit memory. Then we have the implicit memory, which is what the system learns about us without explicitly telling to the system. So normally, this is really hard to get it into real time. So normally it's a batch process. So normally in the night we are going to process all the messages that we have for the day, and we are going to try to find patterns in the messages. So once we find those patterns, we are going to save it in a structured way. So and this is gonna be our implicit memory. Oh, sorry. Then we have the episodic memory, which is the conversation history. So for example, if a user says, run the sales analytics query that we did yesterday, for example, we are gonna go through our conversations, we are gonna retrieve it, and then we are gonna put it in the context again. So normally this is a hybrid system. Normally we use a vector database with also keyword search for that purpose. Let's talk about another pattern, which is dynamic content. Instructions that arrive when needed. Just to talk about the collocation pattern, this is just an example, but the old way, for example, let's picture an agent with 10 tools. Normally in the old way, what we did is to put all the 10 tools and instructions loaded in the system prompt. But this is a new way, the collocation pattern. Once we call the tool, we can bring these instructions just in time. So why this is better? Because we are going to see it further, but there's a known problem which is called needle in a haystack. So if we have a pretty long context window or context, it's going to be more difficult for the agent to follow the instructions. So in that sense, we are going to make sure that we are not going to bloating the system prompt. So we are just bringing the right instructions in the right time. Now let's talk about the wrapper pattern. This is again just an example. I'm not going to say that we don't need to use guardrails, of course not. But this is just an example. In the old way, what we were doing is just having the user method and passing directly to the LLM. But with the wrapper pattern, what we can do is this: wrap everything in context. First of all, we have the user message with the date and the session ID. We have the user context, previous queries, current page, etc. We have the user message, and then we can also bring the safety instructions. So how everything can work together. Let's picture this scenario. Let's picture an intelligent project management assistant in a project management software. And if, for example, the user says, schedule a follow-up meeting about the queue for lunch. This is how the process is going to work. First of all, we are going to go to our explicit memory. We are going to bring back the preference. Then we are going to go to our implicit memory. We are going to bring back to the context those patterns. We are going to go to our episodic memory. Again, we are going to bring this information to the context. And then that's it. We are gonna build this context, and we are gonna give it to the LLM. Okay, this is the same, but with words instead with an image. And let's talk about some challenge that we face and remain unsolved. One of them is context poisoning. Context poisoning is when we bring the wrong context into the history message of the session. We can, in that sense, we can prone the LLM to an error. And meanwhile, we have this wrong context. It's going to happen all the time. So, for example, in coding, this is something that happens when the agent does an error, for example, and we punish the agent saying that you're an idiot, this is wrong. When we do that, we are conditioning the agent, because this is going to be in the context, and the LLM is going to be conditional about that context. So normally, after we saying that, the results are worse than if, for example, we start a new session. Also, we have context extraction. Context extraction, if we have a long context, maybe the LLM is not going to bring the right information at the right time when trying to answer the user question. And this is related with the next one, that instruction following degrades with more tokens. This is the needle on a haystack or middle of the haystack problem that we all know. Also, there's another challenge. When we build real AI systems in productions, real applications exceeds really quick the context windows limitation, and this remains unsolved. And also, of course, the cost increase, because at the end we are building like a huge context. But again, if we have the right context, we are going to have the right answer all the time. And this is your action items. If you want to implement the layer memory that we see before, don't pick one type. You need all three: explicit for control, implicit for intelligence, and episodic for continuity. Make the instructions dynamic. This is something that I've been implementing almost in every project, and it works really, really good. Stop loading system prompts. Collocation over centralization. Design for conflict resolution. For example, if we implement the 3-layer memory, explicit memory is always going to override implicit memory. So the user always is gonna have the control. User control always wins. Also, we can use time decay for relevance, for specifically for the episodic memory. And most important, measure what matters. Context retrieval accuracy, we need to aim at least for 85%. We need to measure the memory utilization rate for the behavior of the agent. And also, it's important to measure the user satisfaction in that sense, specifically with the continuity memory. And that's it. As I said, I have a YouTube channel. If you want to subscribe, you have here the QR code. And that's it. Thank you very much.
You subscribe, by the way.
Thank you.
Do you have questions? Where? Oh, yeah. Yeah, please.
Don't you think sometimes that we are over-engineering everything?
That we are over-engineering what? Sorry?
Everything. Like, you showed one example.
Yeah.
Now let's imagine an autonomous agent, which when you open LinkedIn, people say transit company for this. How complex is that stuff? Don't you think we are trying to bring, let's say, something which we don't really know in the end will work and automate, not suitable for the systems? Then it's suddenly becoming very complex and complicated.
Yes, I think so. In a sense, for sure, that sometimes we tend to make things really complicated. But in the sense of context engineering, as I said, for example, it is becoming like really popular because we were already working on those problems. So now we have a word to talk about that. But it depends on the, for example, for me, I tend to use, I guess, many of you all too. I use a lot ChatGPT, I use a lot Claude. And for example, one really difference for me for ChatGPT is the memory layer that they have. For example, as a personal assistant, I use ChatGPT because the memory is so good. So it's way better than Claude. Claude recently has launched the memory. I haven't tested deeply yet. But for example, for me, ChatGPT always remembers everything. So it's really good as an assistant. So if you want to build an assistant, for example, for that purpose, so context engineering is really important. And all these complicated things are really important. But sometimes, for example, the other day I was talking with someone about the multi-agent architecture. So multi-agent are complex. And normally when you build into multi-agent architecture, you need to have this orchestrator layer. And this orchestrator agent that adds latency, that at the end is really complicated again. But for example, in that sense, it's really easier to orchestrate the context instead the agents. So for example, I'm starting to do it a lot right now. Instead of building multi-architecture agent, I'm building just context and just orchestrating the context. I don't need anymore like 5 agents for different purposes. I just can orchestrate the context. So in that sense, it's simplifying things to me.
Can I ask a question as well?
Yeah, sure.
Regarding context, are there best practices when you want to trim down the context and compact context? For example, what happens behind the scene when I'm using Cloud Code and it's compacting? Like what kind of process happens? Is there some best practice in this kind of sense?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the use case for sure. But for example, in Cloud Code, we can see it a lot. If you have a long session in Cloud Code, at some point, they are going to see we are like, I don't know, like compacting context. Yeah. Yeah, so there are techniques, and it depends. But normally, what I see the most is just using LLMs to try to do a summary of the conversation, for example, and store the summary. Also, there's, for example, if we are talking about a specific session, let's say that we are talking with ChatGPT and we have like a long chat. Also, another thing that we can do is just trimming the messages. Sometimes, for example, normally the last messages are the most important. So there are some techniques that just trimming the conversation instead to doing summary. But it really depends on the use case. So for me, the AI engineering field, normally it really depends on the use case. So there's not like a built-in solution or a solution that we can jump right away. So for me, this is what we are still useful. So we need engineers to think about the problem and try to find the best solution, because we have like many ways to do the same thing.
Yeah. Maybe like one more question so we can grab. I can't see very well. Okay, over there. Nice.
Yeah. So you mentioned that there are some challenges that are still remain solved.
Yeah.
Do you know, or have you used any kind of metrics or KPIs to track these, so that, like, there's no solution for them right now, but basically you can alert the user or alert your team that this is happening and there's a way to work around the issue?
I mean, for the issues that I was talking about, I mean, there's no solution about that. But for sure, when I face an AI project, I do evals all the time. But the evals depends on the project itself. For example, I don't know if the project have a rack system, So the retrieving evals are really important for that. So I used to do evals a lot, but it depends on the use case. So in that sense, you can improve the system. Otherwise, it's just going with the flow and but I mean, if you want to build a production system, you are gonna need evals for sure. But as I said, the problems that I was mentioning, that remains unsolved. But for example, the context poisoning, you can, let's say in a RAG system, you can measure it with evals specific for RAG, for example, for retrieval in this case. Welcome.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Arun. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes. So great. So now I'm actually gonna pass the mic literally to our very own Jandy, and he's the head of our AI department at MVST, and a great guy, by the way.
I paid money for him to say that.
No, you know it's true. Come on. Yeah. Thank you. You wanna help?
No, I'm fine. Okay. Well, no, yeah, maybe I Is it fine?
Yeah. Perfect. Yeah.
Nice.
It's okay.
Is it working? Yeah. So, hello everyone. I'm Jordi Martillanda. I put here my LinkedIn QR if you want to connect. As Mateus mentioned, I'm the AI head of the new AI department we started 1 year ago. And today I would like to talk about a real case of an agent development. Usually when I go to some meetups or events and stuff like this, there's always this introduction, they talk about like approaches and stuff, but I'm really missing some more insights and technical details, and I would like to bring them. Of course, I have 15 minutes, so I can just scratch the surface. I would like this to serve as like the entry point, and then if you are more interested in, you can search information or you can email me. I'm gladly would jump there to help. It's my very first event that I'm speaking, so I'm a bit nervous, and my ear decided to be clogged. So if I'm not talking loud enough, just let me know, please, because I hear a huge echo. So yeah, with that introduction, I think we are ready to start. So there was a situation when a client came to MVST, where, by the way, we do amazing digital products, as somebody said before. And he wanted basically to automate a web form submission on behalf of a user. There was this repetitive task, like user need to fulfill the forms again and again and again. And it's like, we can automate that somehow. If this project was about to run before 2019, 2020, for sure, we would have got some sort of automation browser tool, Playwright, or similar. We would have much like analyze the forms, see what's the structure, and then put some rules and interact with the browser. The thing is that these forms were all different. There was no structure we could follow. And we were in big 2024, where LLMs were the landscape was promising, and LLMs have nice capabilities already. So we started with our concept, right? We know that, by the way, thanks to Alvin, I think he introduced a lot of concepts for my talk. That way it will be easier. I don't need to introduce that much. And we can interact, we can role play with the LLMs, saying, hey, I'm a browser automation agent. Your main goal is to fulfill forms and help the user. Of course, there's some user information, placeholder. We don't feed user information to the LLMs. And we pass some context, we can work with it. Our idea, more or less, was something like this. LLMs can reason, LLMs can act, or better say, they can ask us to act, and then we can add some behavior. In our case, we want this to click an element, input text, toggle checkbox, everything that we can do with a browser. And after we execute that, we pass back the context, the LLM observe, can reason again, and iterate until the task is done, or it fails, or we run out of iterations that we said, because of course, as before Pablo mentioned, this is expensive. We need to control the flow somehow. And we concept that like this. But as with all of software projects we work, we first research of an existing solution. Why? Because we would validate our idea, and maybe there is something that we can already integrate. After some research, we found browser use. Browser use was very promising. It was basically what we were looking for, a browser agent automation. We started to play around with it. And the first tests, were so nice. So on the evaluation phase, we saw that the target pages were open. When we wanted to fill some forms with some context and information, it was working fairly well, inputting some data, clicking elements, accepting cookies, all of these, etc. And also we could extend the base behavior. One thing that browser users didn't include was upload means. We wanted to upload some files for these users, right? And it worked fairly well. But as you imagine, the talk is not called how I integrate the browser use in my project. It had some challenges. So after this was evaluated, we saw our challenges. We needed to integrate this in a bigger project, a system in place. Also, the core capabilities of browser use needed to be extended as well. The system prompts, how the context was managed, etc. And also the flow, the existing flow we needed to modify too, because we needed to interact with our existing system. We needed to communicate with the existing system in place that some form was filled on the user behalf, enlarge, etc. So we needed to decide about an implementation decision. We had the possibility to fork, but to fork this and extend was a bit challenging because, first of all, it was very difficult to debug. Browser use as a project, the goal is to create an automation agent for a browser. But for us, it was just only the approach. Our goal was bigger, was to fill forms. And therefore, there was a lot of extra things that we didn't need. We, of course, didn't develop that, so it had a lot of extra connectors and a lot of adapters for other systems that we didn't need. Also, it was not using LLM function calling, but the primitive React. Basically, this is a way how to ask the LLM to provide behavior to us. And this was basically the primitive version of function calling. React stands for reason and act. And basically, you were asking through a prompt engineering, hey, I need to do so, you have this behavior, act like this. But of course, this was not the best approach, at least at 2024, the end of 2024. Function calling is from June 2023. And basically, the issues were token waste. The way you interact with LLMs right now is by metadata, when you indicate the tools that you have available for the LLM. The model training mismatch, of course, like the training of the LLM is to use function calling, to parse the output, to have it in a certain way. And the model, if has the feature available, the function calling, can differentiate was a tool call, was a system message, was a user message, and this needed to be tracked manually and prompt engineering again. Also, the flow was custom. It was not using the standard, or at least standard frameworks to work with the agent. That would be like these workflows through graphs. And the approach, it was user point of view approach. So the LLM was fed with the context that the user could see. So basically, it was mimicking how the browser is looking for the user, but not the whole context of the browser. This for us was not needed. We don't want to create an agent automation general use, but we want to fill forms. So we can have all the information. We don't need to do more iterations to the LLM, probably cheaper, probably performing better. So we decided, and this was the winning option, to re-implement. Why? Simpler approach. It's more maintainable, at least for us. We know how we develop. We are using our standard architectural approaches. We develop our own style. This probably is the least important of those, but then we have using state-of-the-art approach. So we can use function calling. We can use the LLM native feature. And also we can use the state-of-the-art approach to interact with LLMs when developing agents, some sort of frameworks. In our case, was LangGraph. Also, the approach. We changed from this user-centric approach, maybe user-centric, no, user point of view, to form filler approach. So basically, we are feeding the whole context at once, so the full screen or the full page. And based on that, we design our agent. Do you remember the previous? So now it got materialized. So we were using LangGraph. We had some nodes. The nodes are these units of work in the whole workflow that is controlled by this framework. We had this browser setup in the beginning. We start the browser. we analyze the page, and then we enter in this cyclic loop that stops at some point where the LLM provides some actions to do. We do those actions. We have another node that after all of the actions towards the browser, we update the state, because every time the LLM is being asked, we have like the existing and current state of how the browser looks like after all the calls have run, and we repeat this until again we reach our certain goal, or everything fails, or we reach the iterations that we set, or even the cost that we set. We can control that in a very custom way depending on the product needs. So based from this whole thing, now I will explain a bit challenges that we had during development. Instead of talking, yeah, we use LangGraph, we configure that, you can find this in any Coursera, any blog post, like there will be thousands of people. I would like to explain a couple of cases or challenges that we faced and how we implemented that. So first of all, LangGraph. This is very software specific. LangGraph has two execution modes. It has the sync mode and the async mode. The sync mode, and this is the one that we wanted to use first, there is a main thread. I assume that everyone is aware about the buzzword, but thread is like the execution process of your program. But LangGraph creates something that it's called background executor that at the same time creates a thread pool executor. For optimization, when you run an agent with LangGraph, if you have different tools, in order to split these tools to make them faster, it can use this thread pool. So there are different sub-processes in your machine that can run. But the thing is that when working with that and with Playwright again is the browser automation tool we were using, this was colliding, because Playwright cannot be accessed from different threads. And here we could access either from this thread or from the main thread. The decision is LangGraph-based. This optimization is about how many tools were called, if there is timeout, if there is streaming. But in any case, the final thing is that we could not use the sync model. So we were forced to use the async model. One single thread, there is an event loop, everything is awaited, and you go constantly with it. So yeah, this forced us to change. At code perspective, not much of a hassle. Basically, we needed to use the await keyword, we needed to use the async IO, and also with the Playwright client, we needed to use the async one. But it was about adding the await keyword again. But it came with bad news. There were synchronicity issues. Can you stop for a second? Gina, can you help me? Can you stop and run from scratch? So with this video, I would like to show how this browser automation project worked, and also showing the synchronity issue. Can you put it from scratch? Can you start now? Okay, so the agent starts, right? First thing it does, can you stop? More or less. The idea is clear. So it analyzes the page. It's extracting the interactive elements. So where can I input text? Where can I click an element? If I can toggle a checkbox, enlarge, etc. So 1 millisecond before the video was stopped, you could see that everything is highlighted, right? So this state is what we pass to the LLM. So we analyze and say, hey, click the element. In that case would be 11, that is accept cookies. We need to accept cookies before proceeding. Can you play again? So now it did. Can you stop? And this is the new state. So we had one iteration of the loop. Now it stopped and analyzed the page again. We have new highlighted elements. We have the first name, the last name, what we can click here, jobs, machine learning engineer. The example is through a job application for MVST. By the way, we are hiring, so just so you know. And now this will be processed by the LLM again, and there will be some tools, in that case, these functions that we call, to fill this in the user behalf. Can you play again? Stop. Okay, now leave it running for 2 seconds. A bit more. Okay, stop. So you can see personal URL. Here's where, okay, in order to not put any data, I just through a prompt, I said, yeah, just put what would be input by the user. Here, it would be real usernames or phones that wouldn't be fed to the LLM, but rather through placeholders, we could retrieve it from our internal storage. But you can see the personal URL went, the phone went to personal URL. In the cover letter, it went the personal URL and the cover letter too. In the email, I have the last name and the email. And that's because all of the tools were called in parallel. Instead of one by one filling this with the playwright thingy, all of them were called at the same time, and this led to this chaos. We thought about a lot of ways to fix it. We thought about semaphores. Actually, before we thought, okay, LangGraph, it's a state-of-the-art, it's a standard framework, should have a way to run this serially. But unfortunately, it didn't have. But we are software engineers. We just analyzed LangGraph code, and we found this function of the tool node. Tool node, by the way, is like this node that we put into the graph that executes tools. And this was the very last function that was calling the tools. So we have tool calls, and we found that this was basically doing them all in parallel. So yeah, we validated because first of all, we asked to ChatGPT, hey, LangGraph doesn't have a way to run them serially. Unfortunately not. Okay, this confirms our ChatGPT answer. And again, we are software engineers. We just created a extension of the original class where instead of doing all of them in parallel, we just iterated over the tool calls to make them serial. And that was one way that we solve an issue when working with an agent. Second thing, LLMs can use tools, but sometimes they ask you for further information, right? And in our case, in our graph, this meant that everything is stopped. Another example would be, the example or the showcase of that would be this video. So it accepts the cookies. Can you stop for a second? Oh. So it analyzes again, knows that it needs to accept the cookies. Okay, can you stop for a second now? It analyzes again, and now it sees the apply button, right? No, it's fine. You stop it in the perfect moment. So the next iteration of the LLM to fulfill our goal would be, click the apply button, right? Can you play then? But the reality was that our browser was closed. This is because when we reach to the end of the workflow, the end of the graph, the whole browser is stopped, right? And this is running stage, the script that I ran to create this. And this is the agent node response. Instead of having calls, it has a message. Cookies has been accepted. Would you like me to proceed with filling out blah, blah, blah? So basically, it's what are my next steps? What was our solution? Basically, we were forcing the LLM to always use tools. How? So this is our implementation of the agent, of the node to go, of the model used by the agent node that communicates with the LLM. And we introduce this feature from the LLMs that is telling him always use a tool. But caution, because this comes with risks. What would happen if the LLM doesn't have the information to fill the input, the required information? It will hallucinate, and it will provide the information that the LLM thinks fits better, or even like placeholder, John Doe or whatever. So if you go with that way, you need to make sure that you are giving the LLM enough tools or enough capabilities to act in a certain way when it doesn't have enough information. In our case, was basically we are asking, we provide the LLM with tools to, first of all, ask to the user if for missing information, and also giving him the summary. It's very important, like at product perspective, that the control of everything is on the user, not on the LLM. So basically, before submitting the form, there was a summary created by the LLM as well, input there, and the user could review, accept, or deny, or ask about another solution. And how we implemented that, right? How we implemented that the user can basically review, or the user can input information that was missing. This is a buried style and reduced version of the architecture that we use. But basically, here we have the client, the front end. You can go there, click a job, apply, etc. And we have a manager. The manager is the orchestrator. If I receive a request of an application, I will start a new agent in an isolated environment, running alone from start to end. And when the agent requires something from the user, it will stop the execution for a while with some timeout, of course. LLM are expensive, but infrastructure in the cloud is expensive too. It will communicate through a queue system to the manager. The manager have a repository of WebSockets to the users connected for this specific application, and will send information back to all of the browser, well, in that case, all of the clients, all of the sessions of this client connect for this. So imagine that I open the tab through, I open the platform with 3 different tabs. Everything will be consistent in that moment. The way back is the same. I have the client. When I input the missing information, the manager knows how to route this to specific agent, run, and it goes back. And this would be more or less how, at big picture, our infrastructure works. And all of that was to basically give a bit of my honest opinion about the skills needed for such an agent development. First of all would be LLMs itself, right? Context engineering, prompt engineering, state of the art. Can I use function calling? In our case was to assess that it was using React, and function calling probably would have been better, but a better solution. The capabilities, also the model choice. For example, for code-related things, the Anthropic models, Sonnet ones, are very good, but when working with large text, they fail, and therefore your tools are not behaving as expected. The agent orchestrator framework subtleties, in our case, execution models, we needed to solve like these parallelism issues to make them work correctly. Also the execution flow, you need to really understand how it goes from one node to the other node, how is like the decision to jump in between nodes. Also the state management, this is something that I couldn't talk right now, but the whole execution has a state. You don't want this state to go to the LLM, but you want this state to be available for the tools, etc. And last but not least, as every software project, to have some software architecture inside. The implementation view, so basically how do you structure your code? Very important. You don't want to be coupled to the providers. I think that Pablo and Elvin both talk about this. Like the landscape is changing so fast, so the less coupled, the better, because then you would be able to react fast. The process view, how the things communicate. Again, like right now, it's very important that the user have the control over the LLMs. So you need to provide the summaries, you need to make him ownership, accept or deny or whatever. And also the physical view, so how you deploy that, right? Like it's an agent. In our case, it was an agent that needs to be stateful. We cannot stop the execution and start from scratch because it's very expensive. When you start a browser instance, you cannot review everything all the time based on user input because it will be super expensive and super slow, and more or less like this. Last but not least, as a bonus track, I talk about the very early stage of a development, right? Everything that I did, it was like the first 3 months of a development, more or less. But once this is in production, it's very important of observability. Observability is very important in software, but very important right now with the agent. You want to know what are the answers of the agent, analyze them, then to redo your work or fine-tune it a bit better. Regression testing, we cannot unit test right now agents, and of course, like there is the non-deterministic behavior. So the way to test that your system is still valid is to have a nice regression testing set. And last but not least, open agent specification. This is something very recent that was released by Oracle. And basically, it's a vendor agnostic way to define agents, right? I didn't try this yet. It's in my backlog, but looks promising. You can define agents in a very similar way, and it have adapters to other frameworks like LangGraph. I don't know which ones were the others, but basically it has adapters for other tools. And with that would be everything from my side. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, so we have time for one question only. And I think we have a question
I
already.
don't know if my questions are valuable, but
It is valuable. Come on.
sure. I'm curious. I don't know what you guys do, but what kind of hour estimation do you put behind building such an automation with your agent? Is it something you're putting like 100 hours into 300? Like, what's your...
This one was a very special case. It was our very first project. It was kind of not assuming cost, but it was like we entered, we had some proof of concepts, Manel sitting right there, created a lot of proof of concept before with LangGraph, the whole agent thingy. So in this case was more about like refining it for the browser needs. But yeah, and for this one, I cannot answer. After this one, more or less, we know how it works, what the job done before. So it falls more or less in a regular software project.
Yeah. And sorry, quick follow-up. Like, what's your split there between evaluation, like refining it versus actually just getting the product off the ground? Like most of the time is in refinement, I'm assuming?
Right. I mean, for this project, the 3 first months, more or less, as I told you, was new development. It's still active, so we are just refining it, like building new features on top. Right now, we're adding like chat capabilities, so you have a chatbot for the platform that you can ask directly to fill some forms from it, adding new features. So yeah, if the project has more or less a year, well, we're in November, yeah, more or less a year. So 3 months were of the proof of concept, first phase, and evaluating, and right now is maintenance. Of course.
So that's awesome. Thank you so much, man. Thank you, Grace. Yes, so I'm seeing the mic, and yeah. So now we're gonna have Andre talking about legal and AI, which is extremely important. Trust me. So thank you. Here's the mic. I put it here. Yes. Something weird. You want help?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, I can help you. I somebody had to put it for me actually. So
It
it's
has a clip.
yeah. She's our mic specialist.
Just to put it.
It's not so stiff, this one. So
This should be fine.
okay, cool.
And here's a
Okay.
Yeah.
Click it.
Yeah.
Thank
just
you.
click it. I think just click like pointing to there because the blue click there.
Okay, cool. Hello, everyone, or salut. This is how we say hello in Romanian. My name is Andrei Danilov. I live here in Barcelona since 2014, and I was trying to make like a memorable moment that happened in 2014. There's not so many. I think the most memorable is that this the last season when Barca won Champions League. So it feels like a long time ago, but it still feels close at the same time. No, I'm not sure if me coming to the city made it like that, like we didn't want anything, but yeah, maybe it's just a coincidence. This is me. If you didn't recognize me, and I'm enjoying Delta del Ebre, which is my happy place. Professionally, I'm an engineering manager. I managed teams of different topologies, recently focusing on more customer-facing teams, such as like focusing on customer analytics, data, and AI. Most of my experience is in the startup and scale-up world. This is where I found peace, but also happiness and as well impact, right? I have a master in artificial intelligence that I've done some years back, and sometimes I do this tech chats. I realize that has been a long time since I was physically, we were speaking between the speakers, I think more than 2 years. So yeah, I feel like a newbie once again on the stage, so bear with me today. I invite you also to try out this kind of things that are motivating. It's a nice way to give back to the community the learnings. My talk is nothing technical. Maybe I will throw out some technical concepts here and there, so it's good because this is just me sitting behind you and the pizzas over there that are getting cut, so I kind of smell it. Pizza is my favorite stuff. And I'm going to speak about a failure, a project that failed, and it failed because you'll see some reasons, but basically it has to do with speaking with legal. I will start with the first story. So recently I switched jobs. So before signing the contract, they looked at my face and they said, this guy has a beard. They found out that I had the longer beard in the past. So they said, let's send him a background check because it looks suspicious. No, I get that at the airport quite a lot, right? So I go on this website, I put all my personal information, whatever, and it says, okay, super. wait for our response. And I wanted to see, like when will I get that response so I can get back and sign the contract. I wanted to get it done. I saw an AI chatbot over there, and I said, I could ask here, no? This is how the AI chatbot looked. So you can see it's very interesting. No, it says can instantly find answers. I said, wow, this is nice. And also it's faster and smarter. I said, jackpot. This is really the place where I should be asking questions. No. And then I asked, hey, I submitted a soft check, which is the type of check that I was supposed to do. And could you tell me how much time will be reviewed? It starts with telling me about like a specific thing that I didn't really care about, like between has an incident, most probably, and they list it there in the data. And also it tells me soft checks are processed quickly. Nice, very specific. What does quickly mean? This is what I asked. No? And we start back and forth on, what's quickly, what it. Finally, it defaults to, hey, I cannot help you. I'll pass you with an agent. But also that flow is broken because it's supposed to be like working hours for them, but it says that they're not available. So let me get back to that. I know these AI systems are very like non-deterministic. So you can get different answers just by restarting. It feels like computers in the 90s, where you just restart it, or occasional punch would help get it back to shape. But these things are in the cloud, so I didn't want to damage my computer just for nothing. So then I try it once again. You can see it starting. It's not bragging now. It knew that it didn't do a proper job, so it's more honest. It's not fast and smart. It's just trying to help. I'm being more specific. Hey, I have a soft check. I have this ID of the check. I want to know how much time it takes. It again fails. And this is when I realized that I met once again this person, Glitchy the failing chatbot. This Glitchy the failing chatbot, and his cousin, I think, Sloppy, the Sloppy AI. There's lots of features out there that are maybe not working as expected. How many of you have noticed, AI acting weird on the internet? Yeah, I see quite a lot. No, so this is a bit about the chat about today, about Glitchy, and I'll go in the second story. Some 2.5 years ago, when LLMs were starting to get their place into almost any SaaS, they stopped being just a personal use kind of thing. You are like, hey, let's do AI, let's put an AI feature here, no matter what. I finished the project, so they gave me another team to manage. This team was on the customer-facing analytics, and the idea, they had the next project next in line to build basically an assistant, chatbot, to like you can speak with it and make sense of the data, provide some recommendation and whatsoever. No, a simple case in that side. No, I went to the team. I saw everybody pumped. The product manager. Wow, let's do this. The team had technical design document ready, everything aligned, stakeholders aligned. Even they spoke with security. They had the check there. I said, okay, I'm a newbie in this team. What do I do? Let's help them ship. No, this is my role as a manager. No, and 3 months later, what happened? There was no customer traction to it. So we were seeing, like these graphs of a lot of usage in the beginning because marketing did very nice job, but then it went down. They were seeing 2, 3, requests from the same user, then automatically they're dropping or leaving a bad feedback, and that's it. And this is the story not about how I met Glitchy, the failing chatbot, but actually how I build it and how my team build it. And you will think about why. There's in engineering and in project management, we know about Conway's law that says that any organization that designs a system will produce a design whose structure is a copy of the organization communication structure. I believe this is the bigger issue that happened here. So let's dig in deeper. of why that happened. No, the project started with one main assumption. Let's use a subset of the whole data, and that subset doesn't have any PII data, so then we don't need to worry about GDPR and any other of those constraints. So what happened there? They said, okay, if we will need to add that data, we can add it always later. We can always later speak with security, legal, compliance, all of these folks. And yeah, it's going to be most probably easy because we have a system that we proved it's valuable. And yeah, nice thinking, but the difficult conversation still needed to happen slightly later. And after the system was built. So what happens when you are trying as an engineering team to discuss and negotiate with, how can we, make this legally feasible? You are not, and you have a built system, you are not negotiating from a negotiable ground. You are stuck, no? Because you have a system, you cannot evolve it so much. You also take some architecture and tooling decision that might stop you to pursue a path. And legal in this sense was strict, like definitely we cannot send PII data of our users to third parties if we don't have exactly knowing where we can look. And yeah, I'll skip the boring part and how we really did it better next time, because yeah, the main story of the previous difficult conversation is that we throw out 3 months of work. Now, if you calculate in engineering money, this is around, I would say, 300K of money that we burned here. No, so if you want the boring part and how we did it better, we can speak about in the pizza and beer but where I would like to focus, it's how to avoid building glitchy, at least from that side, so you don't do the same things that we have been doing. First, in engineering, we tend to want to work alone. It means that everything is like an engineering problem. Let's fix it with engineering and let's move on. Well, in this case, especially in European Union, well, there's more stuff, no? So let's make sure that we act as a team with the rest of the organization. And while speaking with legal, it's very important to be empathic, listen, try to dive into what are the constraints there that they're explaining. And usually they are very, let's say, standard, but try to dive deeper to see what you can do to get around them. No, and also constructively challenge. There are some legal teams and compliance teams that are more conservative than others. What I mean by conservative, they will say, no, this is risky, but there's always success cases from the industry. No, try to let them also own actions, like go out there and say, hey, reach out to another legal department from a similar company, see how they are doing. How did they launch this? This is usually making yourself can really partner up. And also, I think there was a slide with most POCs. I mean, maybe from Alvin, no, that most POCs don't make it. It takes very easy to make a POC, but then it fails. So senior leadership sees a POC of an AI software that is done in 3 weeks, like, wow, this is, you will spend how much? Even 2 to polish it, test it, and out there, and it's not really the same. No, there's more complexity behind it, and this is the complexity from the management side. We've seen also from George, the other kind of complexities that can arise from a technical standpoint to launch such project. And let's, exactly. How many of you are launching products in the European market? Okay, quite a bunch. So you know what I'm speaking about, where we have a lot of restrictions over here compared to our, engineering and tech teams in the US or in China, where things are moving slightly faster. We can do 2 things, complain or embrace this and my role is more to embrace it, because if I want my teams to deliver, I need to help them focus. So the way that I do it is, embrace constraints-driven development. This is also creative side of it. If you're also launching rocket ships in space, there's physics that holds you down. This is a bit here. Sadly, it's just some people that maybe don't know about AI, not really physics of the world. But there is a positive side of it, no? So let's take that into account as well when we bring it and make it don't work against us when we ship things. Last but not least, thank you. This was all. If you want to stay in touch, there is a small QR code over there, and any questions, I'm happy to answer. Thank you all.
We have questions, by the way. I need to turn the mic. Yep.
How challenging, because I'm not an expert in the tech side,
Yeah.
how challenging is to explain, the AI and the concerns to a legal team so you kind of get them on your side for a project?
I think depends on the tech literacy of the legal team. So usually in SaaS, you get specialists that have worked with digital products. So you are not explaining these things from scratch, but this might not be a reality in different companies, like more enterprise, now where you might have a more conservative, let's say, approach. I'm thinking here, if you are not working for a neobank, you're working more for a traditional bank, you might need to spend more time to explain that risk, and most probably these discussions take longer. That's why you've seen also certain products have faster AI features, and then there is, always the late adopters that are more of this as well organization where it's harder to gain, buy-in from all the stakeholders. No, it's not that there's no specialists maybe in those companies. Yes, there are, and people would like to use, but also there's a lot of moving pieces, and maybe a lot of people that have their constraints, like constraints mentally, into how to do things, and there's others that are more, bridging into I say more like less conservative, like, hey, let's do it, let's see, we can play on the risky side. Similar to you have a financial advisor. There's one that say you need to have all the tickets, whatever. There's ones that if it's more your friend, it says you can make these tricks, and you can earn some extra cash now that you do it. So depends who you have on the team, but generally, like in my cases, it was not hard decisions. It's just understanding them, understanding what they want. They also understand, like you want to be flexible, and then okay, what do we do? Can you look for a tool? Can you look for terms and conditions that can cover us, in different situations? Is this working? And all of that, yeah.
I just want to compliment to this answer, but from the bank perspective, because that takes, I think, at the moment 40% of my time sometimes. And I will say to, since I was invited to one of the events in Berlin, Germany, because we're a German bank with German license, with some of the regulators. I saw a slide. I think in Europe we'll have around 50 documents published in the next 2 to 3 years, which we'll need to follow. So basically, even the regulators at the moment, they have no idea what to do with all this. So at least we have some time to prepare, let's say, for that and so. And I saw the first version of the document, which will be published with the recommendation in Germany. It's 250 pages of recommendations how to test your AI system and so on. I have no idea who will read that stuff. But that's from the regulator perspective. I can tell about our company. I think it's a lot about education, and the companies needs to take it more seriously. And in our case, it's a bit tricky because legal teams, they are trying, first of all, they risk people. We need to understand this. If you say, do we need to put this in place to protect, they will always say yes, no matter what. That's basically their nature. But another thing is that when UAI Act came, that was our personal, I would say, some of the failure examples in some sense for the company. That, of course, they read it, and then everything became AI. So like high risk AI, mid risk AI, and etc. And then we had another, okay, they started do a lot of things, initiatives. Let's review everything what we do. We went for the last 5 years and etc. Let's review everything from scratch so that we are compliant in the next 3 years and so on. One interesting thing written in the document that you need to make sure that this stuff is not biased. And then I was in the meeting with legal where we were talking about the model which was used for fraud prevention. And basically they were asking different questions about this model and so on. And then they said, how do you test that this model is biased? Is not biased in that. If you think about what this model does, this model in machine learning basically looks for specific behavior of a customer. It's biased by default because it looks for specific cohorts of, let's say, customers, for specific qualities, and etc. But because now everything became AI, I think that's a big challenge. Because in this case, you should not test for this, so this is the design and purpose of this model. And I think the more we go deeper into this stuff, agents and so on, the more we'll have questions like this, what really to do with all this stuff. And I think Air Canada is a great example of chatbot failure. I think the last year and so on, when the person was trying to buy a ticket and then they were fined for like millions because of wrong information. But I would say overall, legal is a big problem. And how to comply with this in the future, it's a very rough question.
Can I have a follow-up? Because like I know for like BNP Paribas, for example, and on AI, I think it will be even more difficult than in 26. So is there any tips or any kind of how to approach the legal teams on these questions?
Yeah, we spent maybe a couple of days just talking to them and explaining what AI, machine learning, why this stuff is different, why they need to treat this differently, and etc. So basically, we spend our personal time to teach them and to coach them again. Okay. Overall, I think it should be on the company level because in the future, basically, AI will be like Excel. Then everybody has to use this. That's the first one. The second one, examples, maybe that's good practice. I mean, to show them success stories, but then usually you will get an answer like, okay, but they have own legal team, it's their risk and so on, it's their risk appetite, they have our risk appetite. But I think it comes with experience and complexity. So you first come to them with simple stuff, they understand it a bit more, but then you increase the complexity, and then after some time, if they really want to understand stuff, they need, because they need to protect the company in the future. Then they will get this understanding. And what usually helps with this, it's kind of more from, let's say, MBA stories and so on. When you are trying to implement, let's say, something new in the company, you are trying to find a champion first. Either it's a company, or it's a team, or it's a person, depending on what the type of innovation you implement. And then during these conversations, you see a person which is more interested and maybe more engaged. And then you start to interact with this person more and give more knowledge. And then basically when they talk internally after that, they basically share and then they become a bit more comfortable.
Okay, thank you.
It's also, I think, to add on that, it's also landing all of this technical stuff in a very easy to digest way. Like, for example, explaining AWS Bedrock and how it does differ from any other, integrating with a third party. Maybe if they don't have experience in tech, they don't get that, no? But you need to explain it with, like maybe simple examples that are not even technical diagrams, no? It's like, hey, this is how this works. This is very different, no? Like, and then they get to understand that the risk is minimal. In the end, these people, exactly as we said from that side, they are looking at risk, and this is their way of being. Like, you need to understand, like, their job is to protect, no? And if they don't do this job well, they get fired. This is their incentive, no? So they are playing their role well. The idea of the other is like, how do I break this? You exit this role, so you are on my side. We build together. It's important for both, but I understand, that you are having all of this. No, I also want to build, something. Help me build something, because the idea, I don't want to exit this room without, building something, but help me to build this in a way that for you, it's, it's okay, in a way. And in the end, for bigger companies that have a low risk appetite, you may be over engineering some things just to show, but there's also some specific, I would say, solutions where things are very regulated, like biometrics, for example. You cannot avoid, certain things there, and having, traceability, and all of those things, and audits, all of those things. if you look in smaller companies, they operate with a high risk. No, what happens in the high risk? I develop something, I put it out there, I don't have any of these checks. I hope they don't get me, It does feel like all of these laws and stuff, there were GDPR fines, but always to like bigger players or when they found out something is wrong. And I feel like I mean, I'm on record there, no, but I feel like this is a bit of a, if we are saying you are not playing by the rules, I'm going to pull out the regulations, and for sure, if it's a 250-page document, you will do something wrong, So then it's like I will fine you. But if you are like playing with nice, whatever, you can also just low profile. You can not do any of this and still have something around it, like a pragmatic approach. What's happening in the market, and most startups operate like that because they don't have the cash in the bank to reinvent all of these solutions. So you start small, you have this, you get the user. Okay, now let's think about this because we are getting attention. Also, so yeah, I think we are already.
Yes, we are. Yeah, I mean,
getting into
we
the
basically unofficially started the roundtable. I think. I mean, if you guys could join, that would be awesome. So Pablo, if you can join here. So the idea now is basically that we talk for 10 minutes. Turn on the lights. Yep. So the idea now is that we basically, it's like a pre-session. You can ask whatever you want for 10 minutes. And then Jandy, can you also join? You're not hiding, man. Melvin, thanks. So where is the mic? So Andre.
I forgot about it and I took already a beer.
No, but you should have. I told you. It's okay. So you have the mic, right? That's the
yeah.
Can I get your mic because I have to kind of like pass it to other people? Yeah. So like now if you have any questions that you like to, like you didn't have the time to ask, now's the time. You can ask. It doesn't even have to be specifically related to the talk itself, but just like questions about thought-provoking questions about AI, like how do you see the landscape in 5 years, stuff like that. Now it will be a very good time to start. If you have no questions, I'm gonna make my own questions. But it would be very nice if you could participate and like ask whatever you want, but not all together. All right. I mean, no questions. Oh yeah.
I give just a little bit of background. I'm not an engineer. I was a designer, and then now I'm working as digital transformation. So I use generative AI especially for fashion background. So my question would be like, being from the other side, which I don't know that much, how you build, how you see like generative AI in fashion industry in a few years.
So
I didn't dress up for.
It's gonna be with you. I mean, you talked about Gen AI. So Pablo, do you want to take this? And that's a good question, really. That's what I really want, to be honest. Yeah. So I don't. Yeah.
I'm not fashion expert. That's intro. That's context to my answer. But I would say two things. First one, I don't know why Gen AI started with the creative part. And that's the interesting one, because we all want to automate boring stuff and have more time for creative stuff. But suddenly we started to automate like all these amazing things like music and etc. etc. So that's a bit, yeah. When I think about overall, in the next future, I don't believe that this stuff will replace people and so on and so on. I prefer to think this a bit as a more advanced tool. If you think about, let's say, the previous, many years, what actually the humanity was doing, we were building lots of different tools. I don't know, it can be Excel, it can be browser, it can be car, it can be whatever. Actually, we created all those tools. And now the time came actually, and we invented something which is a bit more than a tool. I like to think about this as more like a work than as a process. So that's another type which actually can use, let's say, the tools which humanity built in the past and so on. And then with the final answer, let's say, to this, and I think that's opinion related to other industries as well, that people who will adopt these things, they will be able to get more because they can do some boring stuff, let's say less, maybe in some of the processes and etc., where it's more manual work and so on, rather than people who won't adopt this. And maybe, I don't know, the variety, now I'm completely guessing about fashion industry and so on, but the variety of things, let's say tries and etc., which you can see, basically can be unlimited in some sense. Because, for example, let's say okay, people from fashion will tell I know nothing, but I'm just guessing. Let's imagine you're working on a dress, let's say on the new design of the dress. Before, let's say that stuff, how much time do you need potentially to create, like, I don't know, some first idea and etc. The cost is, let's say, something. Of course, you have your own design, let's say style and etc., how you do things. Now, technically, what you can do, of course, I'm not talking about, let's say, the areas where everything is manual for like very high value and etc., very specific things. But here, technically, if we can have a tool, let's say you can have a tool with Gen AI, which knows, let's say, about some preferences of your style and etc., then potentially the cost of creating new options which you will look into will be less, because you can create hundreds of them, let's say, within one day. And then what surprises me a bit, I don't like to call it sync, but they operate a bit in a different way. And when you look into, let's say, even if you do big prompts and so on, sometimes the answers and the information you get from them is different in the way how you thought about this. Maybe you didn't even think about this, but it was like on the surface. Sometimes this sudden creative outputs from that. That's long answer to
I would like to add something on top, actually. So I think that what these tools really help is with the accessibility. And I will put an example of that happened to me not so long ago. So right now I'm doing construction work on my place, and I want to really make it mine. It means like I don't want to hire a designer. Also, probably I cannot afford for it, but that's another story. And I'm using some like tools out there. I'm using a program that's called Planner 5D. It's like very base interior design. You can like place your room, some default furniture. You can put your models, like like furniture models, to look like you want. And I didn't know how to use this tool, and I think this is used by companies that work for this to design your thing. But again, I wanted to make it really mine. I wanted to have like my place, like exactly how I dreamed since I was young. And this program have this like AI capability of I design for you. You know, like this magic button that you click and you just choose the design. It wants to be minimalistic, industrial, Scandinavian, Japanese, whatever. And you choose and it does the first distribution. Of course, the outcome is really bad, but at least I have some base thingy. It moves the furniture here. I have the window here. I have the table. So I think that for people like me, so my point is, I don't think it will replace professional people. At least for now, at least this is what I hope. But it would make it democratize it a bit, you know, like people that cannot afford for a designer, for example, can make its own thingy. Not as good, of course, never. And creativity is something that, and again, I hope it stays human, because the other thing is learned by patterns and a lot of data. And like, even it looks like the LLMs think they don't think, if we think about the word thing as properly. It helps with the very basics. And for me, like, I ended up with some result that I'm in love, maybe because I really accepted it and I forced myself to think like this. But from not knowing how to use the tool, with this accessibility for it, made it easier. So for fashion, maybe it will be something similar. Someone that wants to design, I don't know how is your field exactly, but they want to do something. It was like not accessible. I need to use some tools that are very difficult. I would be able to with programming. Like before, you wanted to have a website, you needed to pay someone to create your website for you. Right now, Of course, it won't be like a huge system with the best patterns, like architectural insights and best performance, but you are like this guy in a small town that wants to digitalize a bit their site, maybe not himself, but his son that was born with everything can go there, prompt a bit with any of these tools, and came up with some pretty fair, good website for the regional town, I don't know, shoe shop that before was basically impossible. It was just something for specific companies. But this is my opinion completely.
Going a bit on what you're saying, I think everybody can become a junior at whatever thing exists in this world with the AI. This is the beautiful thing. Also, the beautiful thing is that if you are senior at something, you are asking the deeper questions and you arrive to a better result than somebody that doesn't know about the topic. It speeds up your thinking and your seniority. If you don't know what it would ask, it will give you the most basic answer. It can do. You can work with that for sure, but it's not enough. No, you cannot replace seniority. This is what I've seen. I've seen it being used, for even people management in some places, and experience changes completely when you have experience, and it can help you build what you need if you know what you're looking for and what good looks like. So in the end, we will speed up. In fashion industry, it's already very used, DI. If you look like if you go in the fast fashion world into Shein, there are a lot of models there, and a lot of pants and whatever are put on people that are fake, that don't exist, and they look perfect. Look, I'm going to buy this t-shirt and I will look like super, and in the end it's just something super adapted there. This is just one use case. There's AI models that even appeared in, I think, fashion magazines recently, so it's a lot of usage already. What I've seen also recently, it was funny. I was going to buy a pajama from Tezenis, and there was like this obvious print that was designed with most basic ChatGPT thing. It was like, seriously, like, I don't want to buy this. This is like obvious, that they did it the cheap way. So this is where, bridging with the everybody is a junior. Most probably they pay the junior to do that pajama. I'm not sure if that pajama is, it's selling because people want this thing now, but it looked like very cliche, in a way. So it's not something that most probably you can do continuously.
Yeah, I think actually that, I when I look at you, I think we all want pizza now. Do have more questions? If not, I think we can actually. Oh yeah, of course. Go.
When and how will AI bubble burst?
Oh, that's a good one. Do you want to? When will the AI bubble burst? Because of course, right now everything is AI hype, AI everywhere. Literally, my toothpaste got AI.
Yeah.
I don't know what it's doing differently, but like, of course, there's. Yeah. Do you guys want to take this? I'm so glad that I don't have to answer.
I'm gonna take it. Yeah, I think there's a bubble right now for sure, but I think AI is gonna be here to stay, because, for example, if we compare to blockchain, the thing with blockchain is that the technology itself is great, but at the end, the bubble was created before of cryptocurrencies, but no one was applying like the actual technology to solve any problem. And AI is different. We are using the technology to solve problems right now, and it is just starting. So I think the bubble is going to stay for a while, and AI is going to be here forever, I think, right now, because it's solving problems. So that is the technology is about, just solving problems. And we are keeping that in a very early stage, because we are in the early stage of AI.
We can take NVIDIA as an example. Is NVIDIA a bubble or not?
For me, I think yes. And I definitely agree that the technology itself has value and it lasts. I'm more about balance between evaluations, investments, and expectations, and the technology.
Yeah. As for investments, if you I think that was posted recently. If you look into the flow of money from companies, they all basically invested into each other. That's a bit scary. Then usually if you take NVIDIA as an example, NVIDIA was at the previous bubble. That's one of the companies which survived that dot-com boom bubble when it happened.
Blockchain bubble.
Yeah, and blockchain as well. I think the core point here, why? Because they really produce something which exists. Yes, maybe it's not forever. Now they own the market, GPUs, H100, all that stuff. Then something else will appear and so on. But they do something which is useful. And I think that's the difference. If we look into that boom, basically the companies which were selling nothing in that. The product was not useful, the product didn't exist, and etc. Of course, we'll see a lot of that. But I think the point is that it's that valuable, as was just said, that it will stay with us. But sometimes it looks very scary. Because, for example, what happened, I think, today, that OpenAI asked a US government officially to back up any potential debt they will have in the future. And all these agreements, hundreds of billions with SoftBank and etc., they're officially asking already. The point is that all this OpenAI, Anthropic, and we know this from practice because with some of them we are working on some use cases directly, they are still trying to find their business model. And they are very far from that. So my point, I think, is the following, that some of them will stay. The AI will stay with us as automation, as seen, which makes us a bit faster, better, and some of them, they will fail, as it was always happening with the previous technologies and etc.
Yeah. That's the last one. That's yeah.
I'm all about pizza, so I'll keep this short. You need to see, following up, you need to see this from like incentives perspective. There's a lot of startups that scale ups is like, hey, build features with AI, like a lot of, generate the hype. Why? Because there is some venture capitalists behind the startups that are investing money, but they also have some money in this, Claude, in ChatGPT, in NVIDIA, whatever. Everything is growing if usage is growing. So let's pump in, let's do that. And this is happening, let's say, parallel also with offices. We can perfectly work remote, but why are some companies like working 5 days a week somewhere, and having a massive thing? Because obviously there's some monies from VCs or the capital behind in those buildings that is generating some movement. So finally, it's a bubble, but AI, it's a tool that would stay. Like not everything that we build or try to build needs AI. We really need just smart system or some way of automating a job, and we are trying to use AI as a Swiss knife. It's not. It's something, that is definitely useful, but we still need to land out the use cases where it's working, where it's not. And it's not a Swiss knife for sure. This is my take. And let's go to pizzas.
I would be more worried about energy.
Oh yeah, there's a whole other topic.
That on the planet when most of that stuff will be built. It's like direct story to most of these movies about the end of the world.
Yeah, and also water. But all right, so I think we should end now. Thank you so much, and once again for joining. And also, I think we can give a round of applause to the guys here. So, and then we will be around. So if you have any more questions or whatnot, just hit us. Thank you so much.